Okay, hello. Um, how's it going, everyone? I am just doing a little bit of sketching tonight, and actually just gonna, whoops, I was actually just gonna record this and post it up, but thought I'd do it live. I really don't like editing videos, and I also thought I would just try streaming at a slightly different time. So I haven't really given anyone much notice before this one, but there's just a few things I kind of wanted to try out from the last scene that I did, which was a beach landscape scene. So it was something similar to it was this one, and I think I did another one. Where is it? Just over here. And there was another scene that I wanted to do and just try out with my pigment liners. I don't really use these all that much, and yeah, I just wanted to give this a go, see how it works out, and sort of describe to you as well, just show you. And I know some of you probably watching this afterwards as well. It's a bit of a unholy hour for people in the States. So I'm probably thinking it's a lot of people over in the UK or just over in Australia here that might be watching along. But if you're out there, just pop a little message in the chat, and if you have questions and stuff like that during the stream, just let me know. I'm going to be trying to do this beach sort of scene here with the jetty. I really like this one, and yeah, I just wanted to give this one a go, especially with these pigment liners. So I'm going to give that a try. I'll show you how the pens that I use. So these come in a much wider range of nibs. The ones I normally use are these here. So these are basically these Uniball eye pens, which have a liquid ink in them, and they have a ballpoint tip, which sort of dispenses the ink in a more, how should I say, it's a little bit more harsher manner. So when you're using these, I find that the lines, they tend to be a little bit scratchier when you're touching the paper. I kind of prefer these. I've gotten really used to using these, but I've also got these pigment liners, which I bought a while back when I was on holidays over in Germany. So I'm going to be using these just to try out this scene and see how we do. So pick up the 0.3. I've got a 0.3. I've got a 0.5. I think what I'll do is start with the 0.3, and I've got the reference picture up here. And for those of you watching a little bit later, you can just pick up the reference photo in the discussion section of the event. You can just have a look and pick it out. So I think we'll give this one a go, and then I'll see how I'm feeling afterwards. I may still continue sketching, but I'll check the chats every now and then. But if you have any questions, anything like that, just let me know, and go from there. So 0.3, 0.3, and I want to just start off separating this photograph. Now the horizon line's a little bit higher for this photograph, and I think what's happened is that the photographer has actually just cropped the picture. Normally when you have a horizon line that's a lot higher, it's because it indicates the person standing on a hill or just a little bit on an incline, so sort of looking downwards. It's more of a bird's eye view, but in this case, you're almost looking at eye level. A person that's a little bit shorter, in comparison to the figure to the far left middle, and the one with the hat. So he's sort of around the same height as that person. So yeah, it's an interesting reference photo. Anyway, let's go in, and I'm going to just put in the horizon line around about here. I'd say she's probably a little higher. It's about a third of the way through the page, so it's around about here. Okay, and this is an interesting photograph. I think the photographer just wanted to have more of a focus on the foreground, which is all, the sand and people sitting down and bits and pieces on the beach. So yeah, it's an interesting scene. I've done this also in watercolors. I'm just going to go in and want to have a bit of a play around. Let's get in where the water is as well. Still using that 0.3. I'm going to mark off where the water sort of begins. And if we look at the reference photo, you'll notice where the water begins, sorry, the water ends and the sand starts is around about the middle of the page. So I'm just going to go draw in a quick little line here, like that. Very light line, and I find with these pigment liners, they tend to be just a little bit lighter as well when you go through. I hope this is going to be sort of visible later. We'll see how we go. Great, and it's quite an interesting scene. So what I want to do is we'll put in this figure first, and I'll start off just with the hat around about where the horizon line is. There. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Gonna be just a pretty loose sort of sketch like that. Yeah. Have a dress or something like that. And for the feet, it's going to make it a little more simpler, something like that. And we'll get in. Let's get in this. I'm going to just hatch a bit of that bottom half of the figure in. That. What's this? I think it's child. I can't really see. It has to be child. Wearing a towel, something like that. The shorts in, that, and we'll go ahead and put in legs, sort of downwards like that. I'm not gonna fuss about too much, okay, but you can almost imagine here. You know, you've got the a little bit of the arms sort of coming out, fixing his hat or something like that here. So see how we go. Adjusting that reference photo a little bit so I can see. How you doing, Oni? And let's put in a few little bits and pieces here. What I want to do as well, I do want to get in a few more figures closer to the front. I'm going to also just indicate on the ground where the shadows are. I'm going to go to the right hand side like that. I think we'll keep it simple. Okay, and the towel comes down sort of in between on the ground, something like that. There we go. We might have a few figures here. Just scribble some in like this. Walking in from the back there. Figure here. That. And also change the pen. I think I was using too large of a nib there. That's a 0.5. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day for a quick sort of sketch, but usually stuff in the background. Yeah, I tend to keep it with just a smaller nib. Two figures here, just standing around, maybe walking. Ooh, head's a bit too big, but walking this direction. That. Have another one that might be sort of walking forwards like this. Bit of a lean. Okay. There we go. Got some people that are sitting here on the ground. So I want to have a around. Let's put in a head of a person just sitting here. That there. I love reference photos that just have a lot of this stuff in it. A lot of different elements and people and things like that, because you know, although simpler references you know, are good in its own way, they can spark you to add a few more things in here. I like just being able to pick and choose, I guess, like what I want to put in, what I want to exclude, sort of thing. So just a little additional option. There we go, just go here with his arms facing backwards there in the sand. And he might have his legs up like that. There, leg up there, and then we have the other one actually obscured by his shoulder. Something like that. This is all going to have a bit of a shadow cast to that right hand side as well. Another thing here might have a square box, something like that. The ground, little square box, the ground. I like these little white sort of waves that are running through that scene here in the back as well. We don't even need to indicate those with the with the pen. I mean, I'm just doing it to remind myself. But later, what we can do is just leave that area white. If you get in too much paint in this area as well, too much blue, you can also go over it with a bit of gouache. So it's not the end of the world if you end up putting too much paint in there. And there is a child here digging a hole or something. Let's give this a try. It kind of facing downwards there. Might stuff this one up, we'll see. Sleeve, and then the arm here. Doing something, digging a hole or whatever. There, you can almost just work out what they're doing. Hair's just sort of clumped over like that. There. And back there. Look. Oh, it's a bit tricky. There. And maybe the knee finishes around about here. Okay, so that doesn't quite look too much like a child, but we'll make do with that. If I color in this bit of the shirt here, I think that might help. Okay, and have a bag. Just get that bag in there. Bit of structure. That bit of this going on. Do that nice blue bag. Some of the pattern as well. There. Yeah, okay. If you use your imagination, does sort of look like a person. Get that back of the leg in. The leg's sort of obscured there. I'm just digging around in the hole, doing something in here. We'll work it out later. Okay. Pick out a few bits and pieces. Let's get something coming out of that bag. Bits of things that might extend the bag. Just get it coming down a bit more. That is maybe a towel or something just running across on the ground like that. That in. Yep. Maybe another bit of towel or something here as well. Okay. There. Notice the lines are just a little bit more subdued than the usual pen that I use. These Uniball pens I use for my normal demonstrations. They leave a much harsher sort of mark, whereas these ones sort of skip over the paper a little bit. So there we go. Someone kind of digging around in here, and let me have a look. What else do we want to do? I think I want to get in another figure here, maybe a quite a larger one coming in as well. I've missed out on the opportunity here, but I do want to put in a larger one here. It's always good to put the larger shapes in first, the larger people in first, and so much detail in here. We can sort of pick and choose. There is a lady with a small child on the sort of middle right of the scene, so I think I'll move her down more around about here. Get in, have a look. We'll place her, say, around about here. Let me just get the head in a really rough guide of where the head is. I want to scratch in a bit of the external details first. Yeah. Bit of the rest, it kind of comes out a bit like that. Okay. Then the legs. Legs, one leg there. Just have a look at the the other one. Okay. Here we go. And I have her arm coming out to this side. I know she's actually holding onto some sort of like a board or something like that, but I'll get her to hold on to something else. Could be like a little bag or something. I just don't like that board coming out like that. It looks a bit funny, so change it up a bit. And this other arm here, we'll just extend that out. That it's holding the arm of this other child, and because the child is a bit smaller, the head of that child is not going to be on the horizon line. So remember, the horizon line is yeah, it's basically we're looking at eye level. So I might just get that child. Well, we've got to make sure that the arms are touching like that. So let's just guess. Okay, turn the pen as well on the side, and I find if you turn it a little bit on the side, you can sort of scratch in some little marks and not, fully commit to that mark. It's just a little trick. I think she's actually wearing a hat. Just get some of that in, an indication of a hat. I can't really tell, but little kid's also wearing a hat. How are we going to draw this one on? Just like that. Oh, something simple. Hair sort of coming down there, the back. The thing with the heads of children, they're a lot larger than the body, proportions wise. There you go. There's an arm. Then we've got another arm, maybe coming out like this. There, something like that. Little quick indication. Oops, we'll get that leg going a bit further down. And this one maybe just joining up like this. Okay, and be some. And we won't worry too much about the legs now. I think that looks all right. I'll go back into it a little later. I'm happy with how the child's actually turned out. Not so sure about this figure, but it kind of looks like a figure anyway. That's okay. Just indicating where the shadow is going over to that right-hand side again. Let's see, what else can we pick out? What else am I going to pick out from here? Get in another. Oops, it's a bit big again, but we'll. Or I could just get him a little bit, this person a little bit further forward. That's. Yep. Walking along in the background there, and also just change up sort of the things that they're wearing. So this person here, sort of outfit on there. Yeah. Maybe have, there's not really any umbrellas here. Thinking I might put one in, little one here, something like this. End it near the horizon line. There, come down like that. Here we go. That's a umbrella, something. Anyway, and like this to cast a bit of a shadow here to that right hand side too. Maybe cover this figure. The head of this figure is a little bit big, but we'll just pretend and say that's there. This is to her hair. Yeah, the great thing about using these pigment liners is you can tend to vary the strength of how you just basically the strength of how hard you push down, and it will change strength of that line. Whereas if you use some of these other pens that I normally use, these Uniball ones, it really doesn't matter how hard you press down, the line and the ink just forms a full line. You don't get any of this sort of scratchiness in there. So yeah, that's just wanted to try using these because for some reason I've been avoiding them for quite some time. So little change, just a little change doesn't hurt anyone. And let's see if I can get in. I don't know what I was trying to do here actually. This might have to turn into another person now, maybe a bit closer, because drawn that head too big. So turn it into another person. Let's get maybe a t-shirt or something in there. There. Fortunately, we're going to have to overlap. Yeah. 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 Looks like they might be just walking forwards. This area here. Okay. It'd be a little bigger. I've drawn this person a bit small, but it could be a teenager, something like that. But I was trying to get sort of a larger dude walking through. But normally because he's kind of closer here, almost to the same distance as this one from the foreground. Probably want to make that one just a little bit smaller than that one if they're an adult. But maybe he's going over here to just hang out with his friend or what have you. So you'll notice in the this section here in the shirt, it's all just I've made some mistakes. I can just go over that, turn that into a bit of darkness. Maybe he's wearing a darker kind of shirt like that. Some of this detail for the umbrella. Love these umbrellas. How about I put another one in? I want another one in, just a small one. Maybe somewhere. Where else could we put one? Put one here. One here. I think it's too busy there, so I'll just slot it into this side. Yeah. There's the stem, and there we go. Just a bit of this stuff here on the side, and going up again near the horizon line, down like that. Really quick with the frills and things here at the bottom. That. Here we go. Got an umbrella. Second one. Okay. What else I want to do? We've also got this this jetty, which I found really interesting to draw. So it comes in. Look at the area of the water. Just remember about this. Starts and finishes. Finishes here, and the sand starts here. The bridge starts about here in the middle. This jetty. So I'm gonna just start scribbling a bit of a line, and it goes out to sea. Okay, let me have a look. A little higher. We, don't have to make it exact as per the reference. And it might actually can actually finish it a little bit further back. Well, it does actually finish near the center left of the photograph actually. So we're okay to finish it off here. I'm going to switch to a smaller pen, okay, just to get in some of these details. Firstly, I'll just start with just vertical lines. Some of them off, not exactly vertical, but kind of off on an angle as well. Hoping this will also create a bit of contrast with the umbrella here. Okay, a bit more. And they get bigger as we move into the foreground. That's the, that's the trick. We just gotta increase the size of them, and they kind of coincide with this figure's head here, which is good. And it's good that we've drawn in that figure first as well, so that we are able to cut around it. Okay. There we go. So kind of what I was aiming for. You know, it's actually a lot more complicated than that. This bridge is all kinds of junk on top, like railing and things like that. So you can play around, but I'm gonna just indicate a few little poles and things, but not spend too much time here. Just a few little bits and pieces and get them to go smaller as we head back into the distance. Great. Look, what else are we going to do? Might put in a few more objects and things here as well. We've got a bag or something. Maybe this could be a bucket or something. Yeah. We got here in the ground the shoes. Put a little bits of things and towels. Who knows? I feel like putting some birds in as well. Let me try getting a bird. Now, use that person's foot as like a indication for the size of the bird. There. Go, there's one. And maybe here's another one. Here. Just getting in that general shape. Head like this. And coming down to a sort of an oval, like a lemon shape. Just drawing a sort of a lemon-looking shape, really. And there could be another bird there, and another one here as well. A bunch of these little birds. And one thing to remember is as you get closer to the foreground, they become bigger. But I don't want to overdo it. Okay. Okay. I might get in another few here. Just make them up. Not really. I'm not even looking at a reference photo at this point. Just scribble in a few figures walking in the distance. Maybe another one here, a bit further along. Another one here as well, sort of in the middle. That does look like there's some empty space and things here. We will put in a bag or maybe like a box or something. Yeah, over in this side. Get in a little box of some sort there. That. Wanted to get in something else. Fill up this space. Obviously then we've got these birds that we can add in as well. That's what I love doing, just adding little bits like this here and there. Do a lot of this sketching in spare time at home, just to play around and get used to drawing shapes and making them look like things. So fantastic. Oh, V. So the comment from V. Someone's flying a kite. I think kites add a lot to a beach scene. Yeah, I think so. I guess like anything that gives you those beach vibes. I mean, you can draw like, you know, I don't know, these beach volleyballs or what have you. Anything that sits well with you, I guess. But let me see. I mean, we could try to put in like a. Let me just give it a try. Little. I don't even know what kites look like. They have this maybe this diamond sort of shape like that. So yeah. What time is it for you? What time is it for you, V? Have you just woken up? Right. So we're gonna continue along, and you know it's pretty quiet here in the chat. It's not the usual time that I stream. I try to actually stream in the mornings for viewers over in the States, but I do like you know, over in Melbourne, this is like a you know, prime time that I actually do a lot of my artwork. I tend to be more active at night, funny way. So yeah, 6 a.m. Great, nice and early. I don't remember the last time I woke up at 6 a.m. So yeah, I'm trying to get to sleep earlier, but Yeah, thanks for joining, V. Are you doing this one along as well, or are you probably gonna pick it up later if you're interested, I guess. And just let's get back into this. But there's really a lot of stuff in here that I can put in, but I reckon I'll just leave it. Get started. Larger bird here. A couple of bigger birds closer to the camera. And I tend to, you've got to be careful as well that you don't make them all the same, facing the same direction. See, these two are facing the same direction, and then you want to get maybe another one here facing forward, and another one maybe here, like this. Head sort of turned on an angle like that. Oops, too big. And if you make a mistake, just restate that line. Don't go scribbling over the top of it, because that's just going to make it more obvious. Just restate it. These birds in the front, we can also get in a little more detail to indicate how close they are. So put an eye on, for example, maybe indicate the beak a little bit more than the ones in the back. Also using a 0.5 liner, which is a thicker line, and it will bring that shape of the bird forwards more. Okay, I'm always just standing up and looking at it from a distance, or at least just moving my head back, have a look at the scene and seeing if there's bits that I want to alter. There's areas of emptiness, or there's yeah, just areas where I feel like it would do better if we add something in there. But I think this area is, it's a good focal point, especially with all this stuff going on in the background with Jetty. So we will give this one a go. The thing I was thinking about is whether I should put in a bit of headland there, but I think I'll give that one a miss and just get started with the actual painting. And I'm just reading out a few more comments here. We've got 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗜𝗔𝗟. Thanks, Darren. I'm really enjoying watching the way you sketch, drawing along with you in Sydney in lockdown. Oh, thanks, and great having you here, Wendy. I know it's a pretty tough time, and I think you guys especially now. I don't know how many weeks you guys have been in lockdown, but starting to get compete with us over here in Melbourne. And we had some protests here in the city today, and it's really noisy outside my house. It's a bit crazy, but that's why I like art and sort of go off into my own little world, at least for this moment, that you're drawing, you're painting, or you're doing something artistic at that moment. I find that that's all that's really on my mind, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing for me anyway. It's kind of a good for your mental health. So good to have you along, Wendy. If you had questions, anyone has questions, just pop them in the chats. And hi, Valerie. Good to have you here as well. And yeah, fantastic. Wendy, you seem to draw heads as squares slash rectangles. Is there a reason for this? Yeah, the reason why I draw them initially like that is because normally heads, I guess they form a bit of an oblong sort of shape. So heads aren't really circular; they're kind of elongated. Yeah, they're kind of ovals, I suppose. But it really depends on the person. You can't say, for everyone the head shape is this and that. But I find if I draw them as a rectangle, it might probably come from the fact that I really like drawing things like I really like drawing buildings, and buildings being man-made sort of objects, they tend to be have a lot of these sharper edges and stuff. And so when I look at a person's head, I just try to, instead of drawing an oval shape, I draw it as a rectangle, and then I just smooth out the edges. As you can see here, that started as a rectangle, and then I just sort of smooth it out, and you can draw the hair on and just define the jawline a little bit more. So it's just a style. I know some people just draw, like a circle, and then maybe like a V or something at the bottom to connect up that shape, so it almost looks like an egg, like an upside down egg. So yeah, that's just the way that I do things, Wendy. Uh, Having a look, what else have we got? Other comments. Nerida, great to have you here, Nerida. Watching tonight, 8 p.m. Um, Fantastic, and good to have you. Good to have you here. We've got Sandra Hancock. Hi, first time I've been able to watch live. Great inspiration. Thanks for sharing, and fantastic. Thanks for being here, Sandra. And yeah, glad you're enjoying it. And if you got questions, just let me know. I was wanting to do this one for the last demo, something with the jetty. I was really, for some reason, obsessed with this shape in the background, and yeah, just wanted to try one, especially with these pigment liners. I know some of you guys are wondering the difference between pigment liners and these just normal black ink pens with a ballpoint tip. These have a ballpoint tip. These have a kind of felt liner. These ones you can get in with the pigment liners. You can see a little bit more of a scratchier line, and I tend to find these also a little bit more forgiving than using these ones. But then when you're using these ones as well, I find that it just has a different feel to the lines. So if you look at that figure that I've just drawn in there, just a lot more defined. The ink there is darker, and there's really no areas of the paper where the pen actually skips over. And if you're using, if you're using paper like I do, which is kind of cold pressed and medium paper, you can get this skipping sort of effect by using these pigment liners, which have a felt tip. It's kind of similar to when you're painting with the paintbrush, and you just quickly drag the paintbrush over the surface of a bit of textured paper, and you can see a little bit of the white going through. So it lends to a slightly different style when you're using these pigment liners. Okay. Choc, good to see you here. Good to see you here, Choc. I like this way of drawing figures. The sharp edges created as you sketched out the final figures make them look real strange. Thanks, Choc. If they look a bit quirky, fantastic. Yeah. I think there's so many ways of doing things, and at the end of the day, you just got to try out a few different options that different artists use. So, I do it this way, but someone else might do it another way, and that might work better for you. And for you to find your own personal style and your own, visual language, I guess, the way that you draw lines, that's unique to you, and people will be able to look at what you draw and the work that you do and say, hey, that's definitely something that you did. So that's something that I'm really trying to develop myself. And, I don't see it quite as much as other people, but apparently people can recognize things that I draw. Just it's kind of like handwriting, where everyone's got their own their own way that they write O's or U's and stuff like that. Same thing goes with painting. You develop your own type of language, your own visual language when you're painting and you're drawing. And for me, I just tend to do these sharp sort of edges and sharp effects every now and then. So yeah. Wendy, just having a read of Wendy's comment. Great explanation. Thanks. Fantastic. And Yvonne, how you doing, Yvonne? Um, good to see you here, and it must be also really early for you. So thanks for joining us. I just wanted to try kind of streaming at this time. I didn't really plan for this as well, or kind of organize the event, but maybe next week I'll give it a go. Just sometimes I just feel like painting during after I've got a normal day job as well, but after work, I like to do a bit of sketching. I don't normally stream it, but I thought might as well since I'm here, and it's also good, really good have the company as well. There's nice little messages from you guys, and And if if you can pick something up or learn something from this, that makes me really happy. So it's a rewarding sort of experience too for myself. So keep an eye on the chats, and we'll go over. Let's go do the painting now. I'll do something a bit different this time. I'm going to work mainly, let's say, with these flat brushes. People ask every now and then, what do how do you use flat brushes? What are they used for? And essentially, like the really big flat brushes, using something like this versus something like this, which is a typical mop brush. There's not a huge difference when you're doing large washes. I would say the mop brush picks up a little bit more water, but flat brush is quite comparable. The only difference is that with the flat brush, you can see it has a really sharp and defined edge, and so when you go over at some areas, you can really cut around objects. I think a lot easier than you can with the round brush, but it also leaves slightly different, just a slightly different kind of feel for your painting. So fantastic. And just having a look at the comments here. Yves, I was looking forward to the live 13. Now you have number 12.5. Yeah, I wasn't planning to do this, and I don't know what to name it, so I just thought 12.5 sounded pretty good. Yvonne, I'm usually up by 5 a.m. Jeez, 5 a.m. I really I don't think I've been up at that time for a long time. So but that's fantastic. That you can sort of get yourself ready and productive and doing things functional at 5 a.m. At 5 a.m. You'd be hard to get me to really do anything. Comment from V. You should stream more often like this. It makes me join you to draw and gives me opportunity to practice, which I need as I'm new to pen and wash. Yeah, oh, that's great. Like, I'll definitely consider it. I know a few other people were asking me, yeah, just asking whether I could do some on the weekdays as well. And yeah, I thought, yeah, why not? I'll probably plan the next one a bit better as well. Just let you guys know all in advance what time I'll be doing it, just so that it's not too much of a surprise. But I know what you mean. I think the motivation, like getting started, is always the hardest thing in doing anything, and that's why I always recommend. I like doing line and wash, and especially for beginners, because it's such a drawing is something that we all, I guess, even as children, we've picked up a pen, we've picked up a pencil, and we've drawn, and it's so easy to just get a bit of paper and just start drawing, and before you know it, you've got a scene, and then before you know it, you've picked up a paintbrush. Whereas if you're thinking and you're like, oh, I've got to paint something, and where do I start here and there? Often you're sort of weighing up and you're procrastinating. That's my experience anyway when I'm trying to decide what to do. So it's good. Yeah, it's good to have people, especially that you can join along and paint along with, and really appreciate you guys being here, especially some of you up at 5, 6 a.m. Geez, that's yeah, really appreciate it. That's commitment. But I'm sure you guys have your own lives and jobs and things like that too. So yeah. And Sandra Hancock, this comment from Sandra, that this time is great in the UK. Your choice of reference reminds me of a trip of a lifetime to Adelaide in 2019. Wow. I don't really know where this is. So maybe it is Adelaide. I don't know, but I think I've been there once to Adelaide. But how was the beach? How did you like it? I think was there a jetty? There a jetty like this? Yeah, here at Brisbane. I can't even remember, but yeah, hopefully you can come back over at some stage, Sandra. Sounds like you really enjoyed yourself last time. Us on the other hand, in Australia, I find we really like to travel out. Um, we and it's funny because we have a really good, I'd say we have a really good life here. I feel really lucky to live here, but You know, I just love to see new things and, you know, travel to other countries and stuff like that. So yeah, you know, once this is all better and over, that kind of thing, hopefully, hopefully I can travel a bit. You know, UK. I've got some family over there as well. So um, very exciting sort of place and just new. Desiree, hi from the Netherlands. Hi, Desiree, and welcome. Uh, should bring up V's comment. It's the hardest part, just laying down the first line on the blank paper. So if you have the picture here, I just go for it. Yeah. You won't believe how long I spend sometimes just trying to choose a photograph, and it drives me insane. You know, when you go on those reference photo websites like Pixabay and things like that, you can just be browsing that for a whole lifetime, really, and never get started. Or you're like, oh, it's not, it doesn't look like the scene that I really want, this and that. But yeah, I think just giving different scenes a go is the best way to learn. Anyway, let's go ahead. I'll show you what I do um, with the flat brush. So here we go, flat brush. And I'll do something a bit different with the sky here. I'm going to wet the sky first, okay, just with plain water. Now, this method allows you to get in some wet on wet clouds. So uh, in the last demonstration, what I did is that I went straight into the sky with a little bit of cerulean blue. And that's fine if you want to get a nice flat wash of that color over in the sky. This is just a different way if you want to indicate some clouds and a bit of lighter sort of areas in the sky as well. So I'm just getting in a bit of that water, and look at the paper from an angle as well, and you'll be able to see that the areas that you've essentially gone over with the brush. So with the water, I mean, just has a little bit of a sheen to it. I let it just soak in, teeny bit like that, okay? And we'll go ahead and we'll start putting in a bit of blue. Now I've got actually some cerulean blue here. Some people also like to put in a bit of purple into the skies. I'll just show you what the cerulean looks like. Now here you see my palette here on the side. It's a little bit dirtier than the last time. A little bit of that color. This is about maybe 50% color and 50% water, or probably a little bit less pigment, maybe 30% pigment, 70% water. Drop that into the sky like that, and make sure it's pretty light as well. And you know, even with the flat brush, look at that. You can really just get in these soft shapes because we're painting wet into wet, so you don't really get any sharp edges, maybe on the sides of the paper where it's kind of started to dry off and things like that. Yeah. And here we go. Got in some of this sky like that. And, you know, you also want to be wary to keep this area quite thin, the wash. So you don't want to put too much color in here, because at the end of the day, the sky has to look a little bit lighter. It's to be pretty light, almost as light as the sand. We're doing a daytime sort of scene. So this will do the trick really. And notice I've left little bits of white here. Any way I've done that is just basically doing the sky and just cutting around little bits, and there's a softness to the scene that way, rather than if you just went in straight with that blue and essentially just cut around everything, you're going to get these blocky, sharp shapes in the sky, which you don't want. Okay, so that's, you know, my 15-second sky, or however long it took. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to start putting in the area of the water just underneath. And technique's going to be quite similar, actually. I'm going to just wet the section here a little bit more with some water. Okay. And I want to cut around things like the umbrella because I want to get in a bit more color, a different color over the top of the umbrella. But just a bit of this water, clean water on top of the blue sections here like that. There. Normally what I do is that I actually paint all the stuff at the bottom first in these scenes, but I'm doing this how I'd structure a watercolor painting. You know, we start from the top and let that wash sort of move downwards by gravity. However, this paper that I'm using, it's still on a slight, well, it's not on a slight angle. What I mean, it's completely flat. Okay. So with the water here, what you want to make sure is that the water is darker than the sky wash. So if you look at the reference photo, you just look at the water in comparison to the sky, and you'll notice the water is a lot darker. Well, not a lot darker, but significantly darker to bring it forward. So that's what we need to do. Just pick up a little bit more of this cerulean blue, okay? And I'm going to try this out. This brush is too big. When you start having troubles getting in basic shape, that's when you know you've got to swap over the brush. Okay, so let's drop that in. I'm going to drop that in the horizon line like that. Okay, it might get a bit furry up the top and mix into the sky. I don't really mind too much. We'll make do and see how hopefully it fares out in the end. There we go. And just a bit of the water here, what we're doing is that just leaving in some little bits of white here to indicate like waves coming into the shore, something like that. Okay, there. Just remembering to get in this part as well. I've forgotten. You can tend to also wait a bit long by accident and bits and pieces dry. Don't worry about it. Just continue on. This area here is almost a bit too wet near that horizon line. You can see some of it's getting a bit furry up here as well. I'll just leave that do its thing. Down here, leave a bit of that in. Just trying to cut around that figure, these two figures here in the foreground, and then where it's kind of furry here up in the back, we'll just leave that. And I hope it doesn't look too obvious later on. You know, while the paper's still wet as well, if you feel that the strength of this paint here is just not doing it for you, you can drop in a bit more. Okay, it's a great time to do things. That paper is still wet. Mainly just want to get in a bit more of that line, tiny bit more of a line there for the horizon line. Fantastic. Just going to check on the chats. Again. Valerie, hi back. You're right. Painting is good for our mental health. Yeah. I think it's probably one of the few things that have kept me sort of sane. We've been in, over in Melbourne. I'm not sure over in the States how long you guys were in lockdown. It's you guys are on the news every now and then, but I actually try not to watch the news all too much. Does my head in because there's only one thing they were talking about. So yeah, over the 2 years of this on and off kind of thing, it's probably the only thing I sort of can go to and sort of forget about what's going on. So it's a nice kind of almost like a meditative type of thing. Desiree, I don't have the liners yet. They're on the way, so I draw with a pencil. That's harder, I think. Yeah, so just use what you have. Pencils are fine. It's just that when you go over with the watercolors afterwards, the pencil's going to just show through less. So if you've got like a black ink pen somewhere around at home, it might work. You can just draw a bit of that, use it on some paper and just go over it with some water, see if it runs. You preferably want a liner that doesn't run as much. So before everything dries, I'm going to go ahead and pick up some yellow ochre over here to just pick up a larger brush. This is a number 10, I think a number 10 round brush. Bit of is this yellow. Just going to melt that in a little bit with the area in the back. Okay, This is some yellow ochre. Okay, it's really best to do this while the paper is still kind of wet at the back, so that the waves and things just sort of mix in a bit with this sort of yellowness of the sand. But if you go in now, it's also no big deal. You'll get a little bit of mixing. You don't want too much mixing as well. See this area here, that was a bit of an accident, and that's turned to kind of a greenish color just over here. Okay, but a little bit of wetness in there, it helps to join that water on a little bit more to the land. So then we've got almost a slight kind of gradation going on. Okay, so just putting in, really this is just yellow ochre, and you don't have to use yellow ochre, you can also use 𝗤𝗙𝗙𝗜𝗔𝗟. See, that's 𝗤𝗙𝗙𝗜𝗔𝗟. I've also got some other stuff here, which is it's a bit of titanium white. Works too. Different sort of sandy areas. This bit's really annoying me. I've dropped in some water there, and this is what happens when you go into an area that's already starting to dry, and you pop in a droplet of water, or you drop a bit of water in, you get this kind of bloom. Okay. Desiree, my skyline is bleeding. What goes wrong? So that happens. So because what we did the sky first, and then we did a bit of the water, and then the sky hadn't completely dried yet. A little bit of that water area will bleed in. So I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. I'd say that's more of a it's actually used as an atmospheric sort of atmospheric technique, where when you move further back into the distance, you have a softer line. But it's really a stylistic thing as well. I know sometimes I also just wait for that sky area to completely dry, and then I pop in the horizon line. The more that you wait for that area to dry, the sharper that edge will be over there. So it's just good practice. Just try different sort of timings, and you'll find that you can get different effects really for when when you go into that sky. So move that downwards there, and I'm just going to get in all of this color here, cutting around this figure, a little bit of that figure, and also want to cut around that towel, because I do want to get some blue into that towel later on. So I'm not worrying all too much about these birds as well. I'm just trying to get in a real basic sort of wash. This is just a bit of yellow ochre with, what have I got in here? Also a bit of this yellow, 𝗤𝗙𝗙𝗜𝗔𝗟 yellow. You can drop in quite easily that, and there we go. The birds, it doesn't matter all so much. We a nice warm color on them is going to be okay. So we're going to continue onwards like that. Near the front, what I'm going to do is maybe add in a tiny bit of darkness, just a little touch of this is burnt sienna. Yeah, just a little touch of burnt sienna. And another thing I'm going to do, just a trick that I've picked up. Pick up a little bit of color using a smaller brush. I might have something like a tiny little round brush like that. Pick up a bit of brown or red or what have you, anything really, just a darker sort of color. And you can kind of hold that on top, give it a bit of a hit, and you can get in some small little textures like this. Just maybe put some blue in there too. Just livens things up a bit. Okay, I want to overdo it though. Great. So now what I'll do for the little figures. Yeah, Valerie, 5 a.m. I know what you mean. I can't remember the last time when I've had to wake up at 5, maybe to catch a plane or something like that, unless it's absolutely necessary. But with that said, I think I really admire people that can get up early and be somewhat functional and productive at that time in the morning. I just find that for myself, I tend to be pretty gone at that time, and I don't drink coffee as well, so I'm not a very I'm a bit grumpy. So let's put in some color on these figures and the umbrellas as well. Now this area of the water has almost dried, so we can get away with just putting in a little bit of color. This is just some red, just picking up a little red, light wash of spiral red like that. And I hope that it also, if it blends a little bit with the water, I'm not concerned. And also maybe some, I think for this one, maybe a bit of orange we can try here, and magenta, which is a sort of pink sort of color, like that. Something like this. Here we go. I like putting these umbrellas in as well next to the water, because then you get this contrast between the cool and the warm colors. Same thing goes with the figures. I'll often pick up some cooler color. So this is just a bit of, what is this? Ultramarine, tiny bit of ultramarine here, like that, and I'll get in, a bit of color for that person there, just a cooler color for the clothes. There we go, and maybe the child as well. We can let's go with a bit of this kind of pinkish color, just magenta mixed with a bit of blue. Have a look. I don't want to get it not too dark as well. Just be careful that you're not overdoing it. All we need is just a little splotch of paint like that to indicate that they're clothes or what have you. Another one there. We can have another one here. It's no big deal. This one here we can get on that. Drop in a bit of paint there, there. And remember these figures. A lot of these figures here in the background here, they're actually near to that umbrella. That another. Just trying to use some cooler colors. Drop in a bit of paint in there. Okay. Purposely sort of doing this while everything's wet as well. Background's wet, everything's wet. The only thing that I don't really like is just this section here, but we'll make do with it. Once it's dried, I'll go over. Sorry, Desiree, I'm going a bit fast for you. Yeah, if you have questions, Desiree, just let me know. Just like what I'm doing. Just ask. Crackerjack, what size brush are you using? So this one here, this is a number 8 round brush, and the general tip that I have for you, Jack, with paintbrushes, is you want to use a brush that's as large as possible to get in a particular shape. If you're looking to do this sort of loose style that I'm kind of known for here, I find using little brushes. So say if I swapped over and I used a little brush like this tiny little, this is a number 4 round brush, and I tried to get in, the shirt of this person, it's just going to be too nitpicky, and you're going to see where the brush strokes are. I just want to get in color. At the moment, placing color, details and shadows, they'll come along a little bit later. So at the moment, we're just looking at the overall composition. I'm just looking at colors. I want some coolness here. I want some warmth here, so that they kind of contrast. And then I want bits of coolness kind of in the middle of all these areas to join up the sky as well. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Jack. And if anyone has other questions, they wondering what I'm doing, just ask, and I'll do my best to give you a hand. Okay. Been going a bit too fast for you, Desiree. Yeah. The sometimes I just tend to, especially on my own, I can do a sketch or something like this in maybe 20, 30 minutes. Just to get myself used to, give myself a bit more practice drawing the shapes really, and just focusing on like color combinations. So I don't really try too much to think about the actual, um, the details, too much about the details. As long as it kind of looks a bit like what it's supposed to, I'm happy with that. But I love sketching in watercolors. It's just a great way to pass the time, and watercolor lends itself to also like little sporadic little things like this as well. And there's other artists. There's a friend I have online. You got Paul Hopkinson, and he does a lot of birds, really detailed bird scenes, and he uses watercolors completely differently and um, you know amazingly, in fact. But this is just sort of my style of doing things. Yep. No, that's okay, Jack. I hope that was helpful. And you know, I really don't have all that many brushes that I use. I've got these are the ones I sort of just keep here. But to be quite honest with you, I only use about maybe 3 or 4 of these in most paintings. I use a big brush, so one of these larger flat brushes. I use a medium-sized round brush, and then a small round brush, and that's about it. So you can get by on that, and then you got a few bonus ones. And a lot of companies, they try to sell you a bunch of 20 brushes, or even with paints, they'll try to sell you like 30 paints, and you need to have all these colors, but you don't really. You only need a few. So um, you know, uh, large brush, medium brush, small brush, and then with your paints, as long as you got your primary colors, red, yellow, blue, preferably a warm and cool version of each primary, so 6 colors technically, you can mix almost anything with those. That's all, essentially all that I use. I'm going to go just get in a bit of color here for the skin. So I'm just putting in a bit of, this is just some pyrrole red, a little bit of pyrrole red. Find what makes a kind of a lighter sort of skin tone as well. If you use pyrrole red, mix that with a bit of yellow ochre, and then you can just darken that. If you want to create a slightly darker skin tone, just put a bit of burnt sienna in there, and you can also mix a little bit of ultramarine in there too. So just sort of have a play around and try different combinations. Okay, I'm really just dropping in a bit of color. I'm not worrying all too much about that here. Child, I'll just get in more red. Okay, connect up their hands kind of like that. There we go. Looking all right. I at least want to have this figure here looking like something, not too loose. There's just at least want to have this area looking okay. And everything else I'm not too fussed with. Maybe this one as well. Let's get in a bit of red, tiny bit of pyrrole red there. We go. Bit for the face for that person, and just a little bit of warmth for the face. And you can put in a bit of burnt sienna as well for different sort of figures, depending on the skin tones that you're aiming to get. Um, it really just indicates that there is a person there. Indicates that head like that. Just sort of tap it onto the person. I'm just going to add in a bit of blue for this shirt here. Maybe a little bit of blue here for the bag. Well, what's this? Something here too. Great. So I've been sort of playing around with this area for a bit. I'm going to give this all a really quick dry, and then we'll get in all the shadows, things like that, and finish it off. So give me one moment. I'll just pause the audio. Okay, it's all dried. Giving that a really quick dry with hair dryer. It's just a thing I love to do. It saves so much time. Um, I'll go through the comments just quickly on the chats to see if there's anything else. Valerie, I'm in the UK. Oh, cool. And yeah, I just assumed, you probably would have mentioned before, I just assumed that you're in the US. Seems most countries are suffering the same or similar issues relating to the code virus. Painting is a great way to play ostrich and stick our heads into paintings. Yep, um, definitely is. Crackerjack, I've only been watercolor painting for less than a year. Paint every day, still too controlling. Really trying to loosen up. Yeah, and look, there's nothing, painting in a more sort of controlling manner and in a more, I guess, realistic manner. That's fine as well. And I find, if you look at all the painters, like all the classical painters and guys that ended up creating quite abstract pieces, so like Picasso or even Van Gogh, a lot of them, if you look at their earlier works, they have quite realistic styles, and then they end up abstracting and sort of moving away from that. So, learning the technical skills, learning those basic sort of drawing skills, and learning how to control that watercolor from a technical standpoint, so like painting in the lines, that kind of thing. I think that's a good way to learn as well. You kind of forms a good basis for later on if you do want to loosen up too. So, but everyone does things differently. I did a bit of art during school, but a lot of this stuff I think I just started, just painting loosely to begin with. And let's have a look. Let's have a look at the chats again. V. So not adding more lines to the jetty or some reds and browns. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do just a moment. So I try to get in all the dark areas and all the shadows and things like that in one go, because I don't want to, especially before, because that area here was a little bit wet. If we start going into the jetty and drawing some of these lines, what I was worried about is some of these lines just spreading and kind of lose the picture of that jetty at the back. So I'm just trying to do that all in one go. In fact, the paper is still, it's a little bit slightly damp, but it's going to be okay. It's dry enough for me to sort of paint on. And it's kind of like what I was saying before with the brushes. You want to pick a brush that's, big enough to get in whatever the shape is, just big enough. And with this jetty, I don't want to pick up a gigantic brush like this and try to get in those lines. It's going to be, it's not going to work well. So I'll start off at the back, and I'm just going to get in a few little lines like that. And, the pen's already there, to be honest with you, so you don't need to emphasize that all too much. As you come up a bit further to the front, what you can do is just darken it a little bit more. So add in a little bit more darkness up there. But remember, this dries. The paint I'm using here is just a bit of bit of neutral tint, but I have picked up now a little bit of raw umber and a bit of sepia. Okay, just wanted to try getting in some of these with the umber, see what they look like. Okay, yeah, that can work. What we do, just get in the few basic verticals, a few of these sort of slanted ones here, and then we can go back into it and continue on slowly reinforcing things a bit more here. I'm not going to play around too much with those lights up the top. I just want to get in this jetty. That. Great. And also there's a slight kind of shadow underneath the jetty as well, which I think I'll indicate just like this here. Goes all the way out. I don't want to overdo it, but oops. Something like that. Sort of joins on, grounds it, I guess, a bit more there. Be careful about making this too dark, because that's going to draw the eye too far into the distance. Okay, V, this is that explains how I ruin my paintings as a beginner. I don't let it dry enough. uh, yeah, look, it depends. It depends what you're trying to do. So some, some things are, in my opinion, some things are better painted wet into wet. So when we're talking about more abstract and larger sort of areas, we're talking about like, the sand here or the sky. I find painting wet into wet, where things run around and kind of have the paint just goes all over the place. It looks a little bit better when you're painting wet into wet. It's easier. Whereas if you're looking at more man-made shapes or figures, more I suppose like defined shapes, you need to paint while the paper is dried, if you want to imply that. So it's just trial and error. And different watercolor teachers call it different things. I think 𝗪𝗔𝗧𝗥𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔, he calls it the watercolor clock, and sort of like his way of explaining it is, there's a certain wetness of the paper, and in those particular periods, you that's where you can execute certain techniques and certain effects. The paper's completely wet, and you drop in some paint, it's going to bloom, it's going to look more abstract, it's going to look softer. But then you can wait till the paper's damp, and it kind of blooms a little bit, but it's still, you still have a shape. So it's kind of here and here where the paper was slightly wet, and so there was a bit of mixing into the water. But I haven't gotten rid of that umbrella because I waited a little bit longer for that water to dry in the back. Crackerjack, another question from Crackerjack. Appears that you're using squeeze paint from the tube and not from dry pans, or do you spritz your pan paints? I regret buying pre-poured pans. Yeah, so this palette that I'm using here, it's a palette that I got. It was already pre-poured, it's a Schmincke palette. So some of the paints are still the originals back from 4 or 5 years ago, because I use a couple of different palettes. It's good to give them, if you're, if the paints are already dry, it's a really good idea to give them a bit of a spritz. So I keep a little, what is it? Let me just grab it out. Little spray bottle here, and that's what I use just to sort of pre-spray my paints before I get started. I didn't really do it today, I've forgotten. If you're using artist grade paints, it tends to be less of an issue because they tend to re-wet a lot faster. With that said, though, there are still artist grade paints that are a little bit difficult to re-wet. I find some of the Daniel Smith paints, they can sort of, the cerulean blue and the I think Moon Glow, I bought a long time ago. I've run out of it. They're just dry to these immovable sort of things that you have to constantly just mix around and sort of play around with so that they re-wet. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and do this stage now. This is the most fun stage for me anyway, just getting in the shadows. So I'm going to pick up here just a number 6. It's a number 6 round brush. Let's work on some of these figures and things here in the front. So we're picking up darker paint. Now you can mix dark paint with all kinds of colors. You can use neutral tint. You can mix your primaries together. You can get a bit of blue and a bit of red, a bit of blue, red, and yellow. Mix that all together, and you're going to come up with a nice dark color as well, like this. Depending on how much red and how much blue you put in there, you're also gonna vary the shadow to be a kind of warmer or a cooler shadow. And I do want this shadow to be cooler, so with the grays that I'm mixing up, I'm just adding a little bit more blue. And I like this purple color, in fact, which I mix up with a bit of ultramarine and a tiny bit of 𝗪𝗙𝗪𝗪𝗪 scarlet. So let's go. I want to just try to do this umbrella first, and let me just mix this up. With the mix I'm using, it's about 50% water, 50% paint. Okay, so just a little bit of darkness under that umbrella that I want to get in like that, not too much, and connect the stem downwards here. Okay. I probably need to make that darker actually. In some neutral tint, I'll cheat. And we want a shadow running to that right hand side. That, and maybe covering this figure there. A bit on the ground there. You know, we've got a bit of this figure. Maybe this figure is also kind of covered a bit by the shadow of this, what do you call it, umbrella. Okay, and maybe a bit of a shadow cast by that box. So, you probably mentioned, but I'm imagining that light source from the left hand side. So we got a sharp light source just moving over. Okay, and the trick with these shadows, you don't want to sort of fiddle around too much. Just get in there, touch in areas, and move on, and you'll do well. There we go. Little shadow there for that one. Here as well. Look, you got a couple of these figures here which are walking. I've just put in a bit of a shadow here. I move the shadows a little bit forwards, so sort of to the left as well. You know, little birds that we can get in. Just remember to leave some yellow on the left sides of them, because we've got light source obviously coming in from the left hand side, so we're going to have a bit more brightness on that left side, like that. There we go. And a bird, like that. Touch and go, really. It's just touch and go. So we're going to just replicate this whole effect so that we've got, you know, just shadows running across the ground. There's one there. There's one cast by the child. And, you know, here, just going to darken up a little bit more. There. And there. There we go. There's a shadow for that figure here. Connect that darkness up with the legs. Like that. This one's casting a shadow over to the right hand side. This one here as well. You can always go back into it just a little bit if you feel not dark enough. Okay. Make sure they're all running roundabout in the same direction. Heading over to YouTube, 𝗪𝗙𝗧𝗥𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗏, fantastic. Whichever works for you. I know sometimes the stream here gets a little bit funny and goes down in quality, but I always tell people there's a little what do you call it? A little gear icon on the bottom right hand corner of the video, and you can change the quality of it. Facebook only allows me to stream at 720p, but that's quite enough, really. Great. Hey, whereabouts are you from, 𝗪𝗙𝗧𝗥? What a name. I'm just checking the comments again. Valerie, 3 brushes, and there I was thinking I need 300. Too late now. Oh, look, I'm probably oversimplifying things. If you have tons of brushes, you know, it just gives you more options. But I think for beginners, sometimes they just get a bit stressed out when there's too much choice, especially when you got the choice of all these colors, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, you know, which one am I gonna start with? And often you can find a better harmony with the colors if you just use fewer. Use a limited palette, just looks a bit brighter. So that, yeah, when you've got lots of with watercolor, there's just so many variables. You know, when you go in, how wet the paper is, and whatever you put in there, it dries lighter. And there's so many things you're going to constantly be thinking about. And so if I tend to use simplify things, use less brushes, less paints, that works for me. Right. Oh, you're from Newman. Fantastic. Cool. Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. I haven't been really been streaming all that much, but I'm trying to do it every week now, actually, because I don't know, I just haven't really been consistent, and streaming is something sort of new to me as well. When I first started streaming, doing these online things, I was really nervous, and yeah, I just felt like all the paintings turned out crap. But I'm getting a bit more comfortable with it now. I think I just used to rush through things a lot. So yeah, really appreciate your support being here. So what I'm doing here, I'm just adding a little bit of dark paint to the right hand side of that figure. Okay, again, to indicate a sense of light coming from the left hand side. Normally I won't spend this much time on a figure, but I'm just showing you by adding in a little bit of darker paint there, we're going to make it look like the light's coming in from the left. Okay, just fiddle around with it, and the legs as well. So just a bit of darkness on the right hand side of those legs, like this. Okay, I'm always fiddling around with this this little towel as well. And what I do with that towel, I just dry the brush off a little bit and then go back in there, because I find that at times I'll overdo it and the paint's just too wet. So I'm always sort of playing around with that wetness of that brush to make sure that I've got just enough in there so that it doesn't run. It's not too over the top. Okay, go. Tiny bit here for the child, the darkness on that right hand side there. I don't want to overdo it though, so let's just go and connect that up a bit better. These ones in the background, we can go in, pick up a bit of darker paint and just drop in the legs here like that as well. Okay, like that. And even just darken a bit more for the legs of these figures in the front actually. Shadow a bit more. Something like that. Okay. There. There. Sometimes it takes a few goes to sort of get that contrast right with the shadows, however dark you want it to be. It's a scary part of painting when you're putting in the darks, because they really they stand out so much. But that's where the beauty of it comes in, when you have these the contrasting darks and the light colors in there. These ones here on that right hand side. I probably should make this figure a little darker, but yeah, look, we'll make do with it. Here's this one here. Let's put in a bit of color there. Well, just a bit of color on that right hand side, bit of darkness. Just lift off a bit of that paint, and drag that down to the ground. And this is where you can, if say, the drawing, you weren't so happy with the drawing, you can always just go over with the watercolors like what I'm doing now, and you can cover that pen up and put in some more details for the figures. So I'm just trying to, on the hair a bit too big on the, trying to reduce it down a little bit. Doesn't matter, we'll make do. Maybe he's just got a lot of hair. It's got a lot of hair. That shadow on that right hand side connects on with the ground here. Oops. Like this. And we've got this figure here to the left. More of this darkness, this super dark color. Comment from Yvonne. Since I'm very new to painting, finding the right balance of paint to water is one of my issues. Yeah, that honestly is one of the hardest things to master in watercolor painting. I don't know if you ever really master it, to be honest. You sort of get the hang of controlling it and knowing exactly how much, you might think half mixture of this color, half mixture of water, put it down, and you can predict around about the color that it dries at. But in the beginning, it's very tough. It's a very tough thing to do, to try to guess how it turns out. Just takes time, and you'll get there eventually. Yvonne, you'll get there. It can be a very frustrating sort of exercise when you've got a picture in your mind of how this scene should be, and it just doesn't turn out the way you want it to turn out, the um, techniques wise. But always persist, and with watercolors as well, it's so um, it's so easy to just think to yourself, I'm gonna, I'm giving up, I'm stopping, doesn't look like anything. But I always keep saying this when I do these lives, that a lot of the details and a lot of the painting comes together right at the end, and that's only when you've got everything together, it starts looking like something. So yeah, let me just get in a few little marks here on the ground for this towel. That there. There's a figure here as well. So I'm just trying to get in the shadow joining up on this side like that. This shadow I've done a bit too big on that guy, but doesn't matter. Let's go ahead, some more bluish sort of shadows for these birds. I'm going to just pop the legs in like this. Get a shadow running towards that right hand side like that. There. Drop that, just drop that in the ground like that. That's all you want, just a bit of a small indication of a shadow running to the right. Okay, something like that. There. Connect them up with the legs, and they kind of look like birds. I don't look like birds. To me, they do anyway. And I'm just repeating this all the way through the entire scene, making sure these shadows are running all in the same direction as well. Another bird here, and shadow on the ground like that. There, like that. And if you go lighter, you paint things a little bit lighter, you find that at least you can still go over it again, give it a second wash if that first wash just hasn't haven't obtained that darkness that you wanted. So it's just a good idea when you're starting out. Just play around with the different washes and see how you go. Get this figure here, only bit of shade, that one, more of that shadow. Just the little ones in the back, you don't need to indicate too much of the shadow. Just a little thing at the bottom helps to ground them. These figures here on that left hand side, we can get in some color there, a bit of yellow, a bit of red, mix that together. Now let's drop in some of that there, and then I'm going to just pick up some neutral tint, connect those legs together, and put in an indication of a shadow just running towards that right hand side of the painting like this. Okay, anything really that could have shade underneath, even this umbrella. We've forgotten to do this umbrella. A little bit of shade underneath there. Connect that up with the stem of that umbrella. And again, we just get that shade of that umbrella, maybe cutting across that. Move that stem a bit further. That should do the trick there. And really, it's just the same old trick. A shadow in like that. Now there's a few other shapes. There's this, I don't know what this is, little bucket or something like that there. Bit of a shadow there running across the ground. It's really amazing how little you need to put in here for the mind to start thinking it's something. It's not just a blob of color. You have to use your imagination a little bit though. Times. Maybe a bit of darkness, tiny bit of darkness on the right side of the umbrella. And just to draw out the light a bit more on the left side of the umbrella. That. A little bit of color here, the right side of the figures. Very light wash. Remember, when you're painting darker colors, the even if you're using a watery mix of lighter colors, of darker colors, I mean, you're going to look a lot darker than if you're using a watery mix of light colors, because the tone of certain colors are just naturally going to be darker. Usually with the blues and browns and things, naturally darker than, say, a yellow. If you use the yellow paint straight from the tube, it's never going to be as dark as, you know, a bit of blue that's just been washed down with some water. You just got to go a bit easy with the little shadows here. I'm going to check the comments again. Wendy Orchard, I've watched 3 of your tutorials and I've learned so much from you. Thanks so much. You've inspired me to get back into painting, especially important during this COVID lockdown time. Fantastic. So happy. I'm happy that that I have that. I've had that effect on you, and it's really fun, like sort of painting along in a group setting as well. And I know it sucks at the moment. We can't even go out and attend, you know, a lot of group events, but at least, you know, at least we can do something like this and feel like we're learning something. You know, one of the things I actually started this whole group and watercolor recording and all this sort of stuff in the last lockdown here in Melbourne, because I just didn't want to come out of it thinking that I'd wasted all that time. I don't know, watching TV or who knows. So find it's just a good way to wind down as well. Just forget about everything else that's going on. So, I mean, this is pretty much done, everyone. You know, the last bits and pieces, I just, you know, later go in and refine some areas. I also have a little white pen that you can use to just draw out some highlights, and you can use also something like a bit of white gouache, that works too. Little birds in the sky, I'll just put in some with a smaller round brush, just little V's like that. Kind of the wings in different positions. That one is a bit too big, but you know, some might just be completely flat. Some may be upside down like that. I was a bit too over the top with my paint sprinkling before, and you can see there's just all kinds of brown and stuff here in the sky where I was, you know, hitting the paintbrush here to get a bit of texture onto the ground. The one thing to keep in mind when you're doing this, you can sort of shield that area, maybe cover it with a, I don't know, cover it with a bit of paper or something, and then do that sort of hitting technique, and you won't get any of that into the sky. But, you know, I'm just going to work with it, try to turn some of these into birds and make do. Have a few more on the horizon line. This helps to break up the sky so that it's not all too sort of stark looking. You know, yeah, really at this stage we are essentially done. I just go through after the recording. I just go through and tidy up a few bits and pieces and try to draw out a bit more detail. You know, but you know, I think you've seen I've used, you know, I've painted all the light. You know, I've used two essential steps in all my paintings. Paint the light areas, and then you paint all the dark areas and all the shadows. Yeah. And check the comments. What's happening here? I do too. I do too. I'm so fresh in the morning. And can hear and see more from him. I'm the complete opposite. I find like at night, I'm like a little bit more alert. So I don't know why. Maybe I've just trained myself that way. But I do actually want to get up earlier because I find that I'm just you know, stay up doing stuff on the computer, like, you know, editing videos and things, you know, checking posts and stuff, and at the end of the day I can do that stuff any other time. Great. So I'm just checking if there's any other questions. Great, Yvonne. Awesome. I think you have to head off. That's okay. Thanks for joining, Yvonne, especially so early in the morning. I know you have a life as well. So, yeah, hope to see what you come up with if you do this one, or I'll catch you on the weekend as well. So, yeah, I'm gonna give this one a really quick dry, and I think um, I'll give that other one a go. Just a quick sketch of the little house. So I was going to do that one anyway. I just want to try it. So I'll pause it and then I'll come back in just a moment. Okay, I've got the reference picture up on the screen. I'm just going to check the chats before I get into the drawing. Um, Irene, question from Irene. Are you using cold press or hard press paper? I'm not sure about hard press. I think you mean hot press, but it's cold press paper. So it's yeah, cold press or medium textured paper. Some people also use rough paper. Um, Cold press and the rougher sort of papers, you tend to just be able to get more softer and even washes. When you use hot press paper, things just tend to dry a little bit more, in puddles and areas of the page. So you control it a bit. It's a little bit harder to control it. With that said, the hot press paper tends to look a bit more vibrant when you're using it. In my opinion, it just the pigment just tends to sit on top of the paint more than absorb through, like with the hot press. So we'll go ahead and get started. And thanks to those of you who are still around. There's only a few of you, sort of around, but I appreciate that. Gets me motivated as well. Question from To America One. Think I'll round me some schminky watercolor today. I was afraid in the beginning. Yeah, just give it a try. At the end of the day, it's just paint. It's just paint. It's just paper. You're just drawing. So the worst that can happen is that it just turns out terrible. But at the end of the day, that's fine as well. I've I've got about few hundred horrible looking paintings that I just don't show anyone. But I learned a lot from doing them. So yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get towards starting this one, and I'll have the reference picture up, and I'll check the chats. Narrator, great. I think you're looking forward to this one. And I'll show you how I sort of simplify this sort of scene down. I'm gonna try to get in a little border here. So border for this one. It's a stylistic thing because with the other ones I sort of just went straight into it, but we'll give this one a go. It's quite a thick border. Okay, I'm just going to bring that across here. Notice the line I'm drawing as well. It's not exactly, I'm just drawing it in little parts. I'm not trying to get it completely straight because I just can't be bothered right now. And it creates a nicer sort of, I find it creates a sort of a different style when you've got a bit of these shaky lines into it as well. So what I want to do is I want to start getting in a bit of the bottom area where the house is sort of standing. And I've actually cropped this photo a little bit too. It was quite a large photo to begin with. So I'll show you just around how I make this, draw this one. V's asking, is there a link to the reference photo? There is. Let me just put it in the chats for you. Just give me one moment. I'll put it in the Facebook event. Wait for it to load. Give me one moment. And I'll paste it. I'll just paste it into the YouTube chats. And for those of you who are watching on Facebook, you can just essentially just go into the event discussion page. I'll just tell you what. I'll just paste it in both. Let me have a look. I'm trying to do this all on one computer, and there's just a million screens, million tabs everywhere. Be chaotic. Hang on. Here we go. That's the link. So the you'll be in there. Posted it in there. Just let me get all the screens up properly. I can just sort of see what is happening. Okay. So probably the easiest thing that we can start off with. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay, Jack. We'll go ahead and just get in this area of grass here on the ground. I also want to change things up a bit. Let's look a bit. Something just looks a bit bland about it. I might put in some figures. Definitely want to put in another tree here on the right hand side. Let's go in. Just draw a line kind of coming up, and you'll notice that it sort of finishes. It's not even a third of the way. It's probably a sixth of the way through the paper. So just a little line coming up across to here. This will be a quick sort of one. Now the house. Now we're going to use some really basic measurements here. When we look at the top of the house, where does that sort of coincide in terms of the height of the paper? So if you sort of draw, if you use an imaginary line and sort of draw that across where the top of the house is, let's say it's around about here. I wouldn't say it's a third, probably a bit less than a third. So it finishes around here, okay? So right smack bang in the middle of the scene. And they say it's not good to put the subject of the painting right in the middle of the scene, but I'm not going to worry too much about that for this one. Now what we want to do, we know that's the top, okay? And we know the bottom finishes somewhere around here. So we're going to put in the top, we're going to put in the bottom, okay? And what we're going to do now is we're going to just separate that out a little bit. I'm just having a look. It's a very, it's an interesting looking house. So probably we'll start, let's get in the bottom of that house first, where the, these little bits and pieces come out below the, where the doors are and things. So trying to explain just around about where it is, but I can't really point on the photo. Get that line roughly around about here. So we're going to separate the floors of the house. 2 floors, bottom floor, ground floor, and the first floor. And then we've got the kind of roof here. And then on top of the roof, we've got this kind of structure here. Okay, roughly. So that's how I'm going to sort of base it. We can just put in a few little, turn the pen a little bit on the side to get in some funny details like this. Okay. just really light indications like that. Look, the bottom part of the house comes out about here, there, and we know that it finishes around here, like this, finishes around about here, and there's all these little areas of the rooftop running sort of just horizontally like that. Okay, so I'm just going to get in a few indications like that. And then we know there's like 4 openings. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 very obvious sort of openings as well. So you can bring this one down. That's really the side of the building there. But then there's another, it's probably actually a little wider than how I've drawn it. I can just extend that out a little bit there. That can be a section here. You draw this section of the house running down like that. So this can be one opening like this. Oops, this on that a little bit too out the way, but we'll be all right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 openings. The easiest way to do this is just to chop this just in half. So here's the section right here. Okay. End bit. 1, 2. Wait, oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly. Okay. Just triangles. Just think of them as triangles connecting up here. That have certain patterns and things to them as well. I'm going to ignore a lot of that detail. You've got bits and pieces you can pick out. Like these windows, I'm going to get in this window here. That. Okay. And the frame is a kind of a dark color. It's this sort of, it's just a darker frame, like that. There's stuff on the porch. I can't really see what that is, and it doesn't quite matter. It doesn't quite matter. I'm just going to go draw a few things in here, like a bench or something like that. Some boxes. There's another window here on the side. Get in. That. Color that in. Bit of hatching. So draw, just color it in with the pen essentially. There we go. A bit of the frame as well. Okay. There's a door here which I'm gonna get in. Just drop that down. And when you're drawing these larger shapes as well, like this, hold the pen a little bit looser so that it doesn't you don't get lines that stick out too much here. Okay. This area of the door like that, and there's a certain area back here as well that looks like a door or a window. We'll color that in, and then we've got other little verticals running down the page like that. Let me just get in the side of this little pole, and they run down. They run down like this. Get smaller. I think this is actually a door. On this side, not a window, it's a door. Valerie, nice hairdryer. I had mine on a painting and it blew paint up the windows. Not much left on paper. Yeah, you've got to be careful with that hairdryer. And they can be pretty troublesome if you're if you're in a rush. I've just realized this house is slightly lopsided. Can you tell? It's almost on a little bit to the left. I'm going to try to correct this up here, straighten up that line a bit here. So not all that much we can do, and honestly, it's not a huge thing, but I've noticed that. Okay, get the bottom of this area of that rooftop in, or whatever it is. That there. There is a little window here and another structure on top here, like that. Okay. Here we go. And big, interesting sort of roof. It actually curves like that. So does this one. I might leave out that whatever that thing is there, or I know there's a little structure just running over the... Oh, it's actually the building behind it. That's okay. So there's another section of another building just going right behind like this. That's what's creating this shape. Yeah. Yep. These two feature windows here are great. So we're just I'm gonna outline the top of them, roughly their locations. And there's also a thin line up the top there like that. Okay. And let's just draw in these windows like this. There. Get this one in as well, like this. Runs it down the page, finishes around about here. That. A line there. Frames are quite dark too. Try to get in a bit more the frame on the side of it. Outlined extra. Get that the side of the house in more as well. This. Yep. Okay. Yeah, this one is actually a lot more complicated than I thought. So I'm going to zoom. Let me just zoom in on the reference picture, see what we're dealing with here. Okay, so we can simplify this back section of the house. There's really another shape, another sort of back section that runs up just around about here and here, and it runs just vertically down like this. Another side here. And then it curves all the way up, finishes about here, the top. Yeah. Okay. Same here. The roof comes out, the back curves down to the side. This little cap here runs to the back of the house. It should do the trick. At the top of this roof in like that. There. And I've already noticed that I've not left enough room for the top section of the house. But we'll make do. We'll just get in. We'll just go over that line once more. Here. That. And there's actually a little bit of perspective here. Side of the house there. It's almost like a box sitting on top, really. And we've got a couple of windows. A couple of small windows like that. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Great. So now we're going to sort of change things up. What else are we going to put in here? I know there's these trees, so we can. I want to get some of those trees in. So I'm just going to use the pen to just rough in a bit of this shape, larger tree here, and I'm going to get that to actually overlap with the house a teeny bit there on that side. Put roughly where the trunks are here. Okay, but just these round sort of shapes, bits and pieces coming off the side like that. Might have another tree here. That just a really abstract sort of looking shape like that. There. A bit of grass and things here at the bottom. Could have a person. Now remember, if you're drawing people in here, especially if the people are really near to the house, I'm going to make them smaller as well. Okay, but maybe I'll have a guy that's walking in a little bit closer to the scene. Maybe he's like a bit further away and walking towards that. So leaning a little bit towards the left, and then this leg coming forward like that, and then this leg coming towards the back there. A bag maybe here, that. An arm sort of coming out to the front there, something like this. Yeah, go. Got a person. Actually thinking about the shadows as well. I think I will make some shadows going to the right hand side so we can get some more dramatic looking shadows on the building. But one thing I want is, again, just to get some more trees and things, especially around the figures here, to balance it out, because we've got all these shapes on this side. We need something here to balance out this section. That. Okay. We can maybe even have some trees just coming in from the side like this. Well, running through the scene. scribble in a few little bits and pieces. There we go. Thing with these branches, you want to draw that line, and then that line then sort of splinters off into two lines, and these lines sort of splinter off, and you want to keep it quite random. I find this sort of thing that I'm doing here, it frames this house a bit better. So we can put another person maybe here as well. Maybe they're just further in. That. Have a play around. I don't have to use the same figures and things like that that I'm using. Just thinking, what else could we even put in here? Just playing around with some shapes, especially maybe some shapes here in the foreground. This could be a bush, shrub or something like that, just so that I can have a bit of shadow cast in front. Maybe have a larger bush sort of shape here as well, just coming into the foreground, so that will cast a little bit of a shadow too. There, another one here. Okay. A few more things on the house. Add on a few little windows, like that. The window. Okay. Another window here. We're just thinking of these as shapes. This is a rectangle. I'm not trying to draw a window. I'm trying to draw a rectangle. A little bit wobbly, a wobbly line, but you got these almost these little lines that just run across like that, the rooftops as well. This sort of horizontal lines on the roof tops. I'm just trying to get in some of that going on there. Really, the drawing is more or less done. The house is a little bit on a slant. This could be like a haunted house or something. I don't know. Get some bats instead of birds coming out from the sides. Right, I'm just gonna check the chats. Oh, a truck. It turned into a truck. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea, V. Having some kind of car or something in here. I don't know if I've got enough room, but you can sort of just draw the front of a car like that, maybe. Like that. And that. And then just have the wheels there. Coming out the bottom. Bit of a shadow here on the right. It could look a bit like a car there. Maybe we have one on the side. Car. There. Hard to tell really, but looks like something at least. Okay. Let's see if I can get a few little perspective lines running through here as well. The ground. Yep. This is a hill. Okay. Go ahead and do the painting. Hope those of you who are watching are keeping up okay. Otherwise, you can always rewind this a little bit later and yeah, go through a little bit later and pick up on where you've sort of left off. Just checking the chats for Facebook. We're all good, so I'm going to begin painting this one, and I'll get the house in first. I want to get the colors, a bit of the light areas of the house in, because essentially I just want to avoid mixing any bluish colors or anything in here. So maybe try with some purple sky as well. So I'm using a smaller brush, number 6, and you know, I always saying before, you know, when you're using brushes, use the smallest brush, so the largest brush you can, to paint in a particular shape. This house is a kind of a creamy, almost like a Naples, not Naples yellow, but it's almost approaching that. It's a creamy white color. So I might use a bit of Naples yellow, which is essentially any kind of bright yellow that's mixed in with some wash, and use that. I'm just going to get a light wash of this color over the top. Okay? Not overthink it. There. We're almost going over the entire thing with Naples yellow, except for the roof areas, which are kind of darker. Yeah, they have a cooler color in them. So we'll leave the windows as well so that we can get in a bit of cerulean or some of the blue in there. That. We'll just cut around those window tops like that. And down the bottom as well, we want to just add in some more of this Naples yellow. Don't have Naples yellow, just use what you've got. Just use a warm color. Okay, just pause that for a moment before. Reference photo up. It's really tricky having all these windows up at the same time. Bit more Naples yellow up the top here. I'm going to actually drop in some color, maybe a bit of really there's like a greenish blue. I might mix some Naples yellow with a bit of blue. Some of that in. Yeah, get it to mix together. Matter all too much. I'm even just picking up some other color here so that I can encourage a bit of mixing with the yellow like that. Okay. Something like this. Blue on top as well like that. A bit here. Like that. Fantastic. And now with the, with these trees and things as well, I like to use a bit of green just to get in some color. I might just pick up a bit of this. Is what it is. It's bit of sap green in there for the behind areas. So drop in that sap green. Okay, first like that. Go around the car. Right. I'm just putting in a really light wash of that green. This is a bit darker, dropping the darker bits in like that. Okay. Very loosely, just getting in some of those greens here in the background. Then in the foreground, I'll be very quick with this, but there's just some yellow ochre in there for the front. Around the figures as well. Okay. Yeah. Yellow. That. Yeah. Really just getting in the light wash. Okay. Now, for the background color, I want a bit of purple in the sky. So I'm going to mix up a little purple. What have we got here? A bit of ultramarine. And we'll drop that in with a bit of the magenta. A bit of ultramarine with some red, that works quite well. That purplish color. I might get in a bit of that cerulean blue as well. And we want to keep this area very light. Okay. Starting out from the top. Well, I've kind of started in the middle of the page, but you getting it, having that sky a little bit darker at the top first. Like this. And then moving down, adding more water as we go around. Cut around this house a little bit as well. That. Okay. Okay. Just wanted a bit more of a red base in the sky because, we've got all these trees and things which are green. So I was hoping maybe to get something, at least closer to a complementary greens. But we'll let that all mix in. That's all kind of wet into wet work. There. Yeah. 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 Same over for this side of the house. Just cut around the house. That. Mix that into the trees. I'm trying to keep the sky fairly light as well. I don't want it to be too dark. Dropping in that purple. This and encouraging it to mix with the green. Okay. Got all these light colors here, and hopefully some of this granulates out. Looks interesting. We can also just go in and drop in some darker shapes like this. That in the corner, the edges. This. Yeah. Great. And a teeny bit of color for the figures. So I think what I'll do is actually take an opportunity to add some red in here. A little bit of red color for that. All these figures. Contrast a bit with the greens in the background. Tiny bit of that red. This one we might darken down a bit with blue in the edges. These cars, I'm just going to add a little color to them as well. Okay, and with the windows, a little bit of cerulean blue I want to drop in here. This light wash of cerulean blue. Okay, that. Go. Brick. Okay. Great, great. I think also for the little edges here, I do want to color these in with a bit of, this is just some burnt sienna picked up. Some of these sections of the house, where the poles run down, just going to color them in, run some of these verticals downwards like that, but they're just not completely completely white. Join them to the ground a bit like that. Okay. Liking how a lot of these trees have turned out, but I do want some darker ones here and there. So this is what I'm doing. I'm just dropping in a bit of paint in bits and sort of places to create some different shapes. Yep, different shapes here and there. Also, what we've forgotten is in the foreground, we've also got some shrubs and things. So I'm going to drop in the paint here for these shrubs. A bit there, a little bit here, like that. Maybe some more of that green, bit of that sap green there. Okay. Probably be time as well where we can get in a soft shadow for this. Now, for the shadows of the trees, I'm just going to use a bit of blue, ultramarine blue, mixed with a bit of that green. Hopefully, just get in some little shadows maybe running across like that. Nothing too obvious, but a little bit, little something like that. Okay. Great. So what I'll do, I'll give this all a little dry, and we'll come back to it and finish it off. Okay. How's everyone? How's everyone going? I think I feel like I've been talking for quite a while. I'm just gonna check the chats and see what's happening. Jocelyn, thanks for joining, and Patricia. Yeah, yeah. It was more of an impromptu thing. I do a bit of sketching at night anyway, so I thought, yeah, might as well just stream it in case some of you guys might be watching and could learn something from it. Nerida was asking, where did you find this house? Do you mean the reference photo itself? This one I just found on a website, 𝗢𝗙𝗡𝗑𝗑𝗡. So if you go to yeah, 𝗢𝗙𝗡𝗑𝗡, just search for it somewhere in Google, or just any free reference photo website, really. And I typed, yeah, I think I typed house on a hill, so something like that. Thought it would have been a good, just something simple to do, something fun and simple to do, play around with some color combinations, kind of thing. Okay. Great. I'm just checking the chats. Thanks Valerie for joining. Got to head off. All good. I left lines out of my house. Regret it now. It is like the pen is where the true rendering is. Yeah, like that's a thing with pen and wash. The pen always shows through, and don't worry if you haven't if you want to add some more details to the house, you can do this afterwards, so don't feel like you have to um, get it all in now. Later when you finish, you can draw in a few little lines here and there to finish it off. So I often do that as well when forget a few things. And just having a look at who else who's in the chats. Hey Anne, and we here as well. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Oh, you've fantastic. You've joined my Patreon. Join your Patreon group. Only $10 a month, and would encourage others to join too. Thanks so much, Anne, and appreciate you supporting me. I've got a whole really all the stuff that I have on Patreon and all my courses. It's quite similar to what I go through here. It's just that I have a lot of topics and a lot of different subjects that I cover. So you can pretty much learn everything on these lives for free anyway through me. But if you do feel like you want to support, yeah, I do have a Patreon. There's also I've got the same links and stuff like that on that coffee buy me a coffee website as well. So in case you guys are interested, but I'll get back into it. I'm just seeing anything left in the comments. I think we're all good. House on a Hill, American, Nerida. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where this is from actually, but it's a nice scene. It's kind of like where you have those scenes with just a lighthouse on a hill, and the focus is just on that building because there's nothing else around it. I think it's quite nice. So what we're going to do, we're just going to get in the final remaining shadows, and for that I'm going to mix up a purple sort of color. I really love my purples. V, will you be doing asking a question? Will you be doing more live sessions? I do learn so much more from these. Yeah, I really intend to do more of these sessions. So I'll be doing sort of like once a week, but I've been streaming. This one is just during the week. I thought it would be nice to do another one. So yeah, if you're up around this time, I can always arrange to do more during the week, like another one during the week, because I tend to sketch anyway when I'm at home. So it's really it's really not too much for me just to turn on the camera and stream it. And I'm quite happy to explain what I'm doing and you guys keep me company as well while I'm going through it. So really appreciative. So if it's if it helps, I'll try to do some more. Try to do some more of these when I have time. So we want to get in the shadows of the house, and what I'm going to do is, again, we're going to pick up some darker paint. We're just going to use purplish color, and you can use neutral tint, or you can mix up a gray or whatever color really, but I like to use a purplish sort of color. And I'm just going to go ahead and get in a light shadow across the sides of this house. Now, if you notice in the reference picture, it's really hard to tell where the shadows are. It's almost like the house is maybe the shadow's coming straight above, but I'm going to try to make it a bit more what would you call it, dramatic. So I'll the mix of this paint is important, and we want to get this darker sort of purplish, grayish paint, whatever you're using, but we only want to use about a quarter of this paint mix to 3/4 water. So you want it to be mostly water, okay? Because I want to imply, obviously, the light just on coming across that house. So we don't want too dark. So I'm going to go across. Let's give this a shot first, and we can always darken if it's not dark enough. And we can just join up the rooftop as well a bit more like this, that shadow, and darken the roof a little bit more, okay? And then as we get in that rooftop, going to just pick up, let me just get a bit more color, get in maybe a jagged sort of shadow running down down the side of the building, so kind of just like this. Try that. And here, there, like that. Here, this, that. Bit of a shadow, but we're going to have that light coming off the top as well. Sorry, the sides of the buildings, these little light areas like that. Do the same here, just draw a line like that. And forgotten this top section, we want to get another shadow in here, so join that on like this. There, and come into the roof, join onto the rooftop. Okay. Bit of a shadow running across like that. And then underneath the house is where it's going to be pretty much a little bit darker. So in some more paints, cutting around that window as well. This. There we go. Bit of the shadow for the house. I think I'll bring that across like this, covering this car or something like that. There. And a few little lines, a few little directional lines running across the ground. This. Again, just very simple directional lines, joining everything up nicely. I've almost forgot about these figures, and I'll get in a bit of a darker mix here for the legs. That. Okay. Whoops. Is mixing a fair bit will do though. A darker mix. Might have to change the leg a little bit. Got another figure here on the right, so just a bit of darkness for the legs underneath the car to the right hand side as well. There. And oops. Bit of a shadow there for that figure. That one as well. It's a bit of red dropped into for the head. That blend into the body. Some of these branches on the side as well. I'm going to just pick up some darker paint, a bit of darker paint here, and let's just try to dry off that brush. So pick up some dark neutral tint or a dark paint that you've mixed up, and dry it off on the towel. Then you can get in some of these sort of dry brushed branches and things on, so you really can't see the pen much when you do this, actually. Yeah. Little dry brush bits here as well, down the bottom. That maybe. Replicate that over on that right hand side. This. There you go. A little bit of that. Reaching up towards the sky. Yeah. Good. I think that left hand side I've gone a bit dark, and to get this sort of brush, sort of airy sort of feel, you just want to dry that brush off a little bit more on the paper, on the towel that you've got. I mean, so yeah, and I've also got a small rigger brush that I play around with too. It's not a rigger. Where is it? Here it is. Here we go. Valerie Smith. I'm trying to read that last word, but I'm too far away from the computer. Your last name, Miss Smith Sice, and I think it says, missed it all. Will I be able to replay it? Yeah, this is all going to be free and just left on YouTube and on Facebook. So for however long, eternity. So you don't have to worry if it's if you've missed it. So this is a rigger, and the great thing about these riggers is that you can get in small little marks like this on the page, and that just little indications of detail. And you can get in. This here was like the bottom of a tree trunk or something like that. So you can try get in something there, here as well. Okay, and a few branches come off to the side. That. Okay. This layering helps to imply more detail. In fact, I think the house I could probably put a little bit more, give it a little bit more. So third layer. Normally I don't do this, but there's just some areas I feel like I could make pop out a bit better. It just looks a bit weak at the moment, so you can go into some spots here. Or just pick out a few areas, like just where you think there might be extra darkness. That maybe underneath some of the bits of roof like that. Be some extra darkness. Yeah. Yeah. That. I want to overdo it though. There's some walking there. Hair on them. Bit of hair on that. Yeah. Just add on some really dark bits as well too in some areas. This. Yeah, it's a window or something. Where's the house? The house is kind of on a darker sort of area as well. Bit of darkness here. Yeah, there's just little spots like that. Gotten to color that bit in as well. So a little bit there. It's just finishing touches really, and you can do this forever. Even on the roof, I'm just getting a bit of dry brush for put some textures on the roof like that. There. Of course, I can't forget some of these birds. Or bats. Looks like a haunted house. There we go. So look, pretty simplistic sort of sketch, and but I hope you got something out of this. Later on, I'll go into it and sharpen up some of these lines a little bit too. But I'll go through the chat. Fantastic. Yeah, how's everyone going? Are you still, any of you still painting along, or do you have any questions, for me, it's good to see you guys all sort of chatting with yourselves as well, um, sharing some tips with each other. Fantastic, great. Well, you know what? I think I'll finish this one off. I'm going to do a bit of exercise before I go to bed tonight. It's 10 p.m. over here. So I hope you like this one. Oh, we're quite productive today. We got two done. And this one here, and we got this one. So I like the I like the scratchiness of this and also this figure. I think that worked out well. Some of these umbrellas, that figure, some of this stuff I didn't like. All this mess here I thought was a bit too much, especially that figure. But I did like that section and that section. And this one here, it turned out okay. I felt like I could have put a bit more contrast into the house, but the shadows have worked out well. Just having a bit more of a contrasting shadow sometimes works well if you change things up yourself, and added in some of these trees to make the scene look a bit more dramatic. Also practice some of my watercolor brush strokes. It gives me an opportunity just to try a few little bits and pieces, just basically brush strokes to, in case I need to do this at some other time. I know that I've actually done this before, had a little bit of practice, and you feel more confident later on. So, I'm not trying to, we're not trying to paint a masterpiece or anything like that here. It's all just practice. These sketchbooks, I learned so much from them. And you don't even need a sketchbook. If you just have, if you just get yourself a few bits of scrap paper and or loose sheets of paper, and just do some of these small sketches and play around, be bold and experiment with the colors and the tones and things like that, you'll find your comfort zone, and you'll find a sense of style, natural style that you'll paint in and draw in. So fantastic. Still painting along, 𝗪𝗘𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗘. Awesome. And I have a new paint palette, so lots of experimenting. Fantastic. What did you end up getting? Did you just get some colors, or like a whole new palette? And V's asking about so there's a question from 𝗪𝗘𝗙𝗦𝗧𝗥. What size watercolor journal is that? So this is an A4 size watercolor journal. I think for you guys, that's like about an 8 by 11 inches roughly. So I find this is a good size one for these videos, and also, drawing wise, there's just enough detail paper here for me to get in some little details. I find the larger the bit of paper, the more you got to put in there, and it just takes a bit longer to do. So I hope that answers your question. And yeah, these are 100% cotton. Look, and you don't need to buy these from a manufacturer as well. You have to remember that a lot of these companies out there, they'll sell something like this for, maybe like 60 to 80 bucks, but you can just as easily just go down to your art supply store, pick up those really big sheets of watercolor paper. Over here they're like imperial size, or 76 by 56 centimeters, I think it is, and bring it over to an office supply store, and they can just cut it and bind it for you for a fraction of the price. It'll cost you like about $15-20 to do something like that over here, rather than paying 60 to 80 bucks for pretty much the same thing. So the paper that I use, it's 100% cotton, and there's so many different brands out there. There's Fabriano, there's Baohong, there's Arches, lots of different brands out there, but essentially they're very similar. So they don't the paper does vary a little bit but for beginners and even for myself, I find there are more similarities and differences. Yeah, I'm trying to make some of my own actually, um, too. So yeah, when I get a bit of time, but I'm actually running out of watercolor paper. I've got to buy new. What I usually do is I buy a huge stack of what do you call it? Uh, a pack of 10 of these imperial sized watercolor sheets, which you can cut down into like 16 little A5 sheets or 8 A4 sheets, which can give you, yeah, 16 paintings in A4 or roughly A4 size. Probably talking in sizes that don't make any sense for you guys, but A4 is roughly I think 8 by 11, roughly 8 by 11 inches. But yeah, the office supply stores in Australia, we there's one that's called Office Works, and I think they charge about $5 to bind it, bind all the little loose sheets of paper together. So I'm pretty sure for you guys in the UK or even in the States, they should really charge the same thing. It's that they have just a big machine, and they feed the paper through the machine, and it pokes little holes in it, and then you can choose what kind of binding goes through it. So there's even binding that's like they just glue the sides of the paper as well into like a book. So yeah, it's really up to you. Or for convenience, I've got a lot of these journals as well. For convenience, I just buy them if I can get a good price for them. Um, so yeah, but just a little tip. It's just probably it's more important that you have the right type of paper, 100% cotton watercolor paper, and sometimes some of these brands charge an arm and a leg for these sketchbooks, and the paper's not even 100% cotton, so you're paying a lot of money for something that's not even going to perform at the level that you need it to, and you're paying a premium for it. So always sort of, if you're going to buy a sketchbook, just make sure it's 100% cotton. Find out the brand of the paper that they're using. Make sure that it's a reputable cotton watercolor brand. But yeah, that's my tips. The only reason I do use these sketchbooks is that it just makes it so much easier to psychologically to pick up the book, open it, and start. Rather than if I got a loose sheet of paper, normally I tape it down, but nowadays I'm getting a bit lazy and I sort of just put a bit of this stuff, we call it blue tack, this sort of gunk in the corner and just stick it down to a bit of board. So it's kind of got to that point. It's kind of got to that point now. But yeah, those are just a couple of tips. Look. Daniel Smith new palette, awesome narrator. Yeah, Daniel Smith do some good paints. They have granulating paints. I find that's a difference between a lot of the paints out there. You get granulating paints, and then you get paints that are yeah, they're just like more staining, and like with the cerulean blue that I use, which is Magello, you get a really flat wash of blue, and it doesn't dry with clumps of granulation here and there, which for some people they like, some people they don't. So I find that's the main differences between artist grade paints. Yeah, let me have a quick look. And Patricia, yeah, I was just talking about the sketchbook. It's for you guys. It's I think 8 by 11 inches, or for us, it's A4 sized. So yeah, it's like a medium sized sketchbook that you can carry around in a backpack. And these are great. You can bring it off to a park or something like that. Oh, V, you've got the same one as me, the Magello Gold 36. Yeah, I got that so many years ago. I got that about 6 years ago. Um, yeah, because yeah, one of my exes, she was a watercolor painter as well, and so she ordered all this stuff over from Korea, and that's how I got mine. And back then, it only cost for the whole Magello set. I think it was like 60 or $70, and now it's like double or even more. Same with the St. Petersburg White Knights paints as well that I got there. yeah, I paid about $30 US for a set of 36 of them, and I think now they're over $100. So yeah, I think it's just more the popularity of it, and then manufacturers maybe charge a bit more for them. So anyway, thanks everyone for being here. Really didn't expect that there'd be too many people here, but it was nice to hear you all in the chats. Gives me a bit of encouragement to continue on, and also lets me know that there are people that are that are watching around this time. So maybe I'll during the week, if I get a bit of time, I'm sketching, I'll just stream and yeah, I hope you guys can sort of paint along with me as well. He paid about $60 on a sale. Yeah, that's a great price. That's a fantastic price. And these, if you got them in the tubes or even in the pallets, like they, sorry, in the dried sort of cakes, they last for ages. So yeah, that's all right, Patricia. Always happy to answer the questions on what I'm using. It's important for you guys to know the materials I'm using, because actually it makes a lot of a difference in terms of, like, you need quality sort of materials that make a difference, that they really do. So yeah, they don't have to cost an arm and a leg as well if you sort of buy the sheets separately. So anyway, thank you everyone for coming along. I'll see you on this weekend. I'll have another. I'm still deciding what to do for the second scene. I'll have one pure watercolor scene, and the other one I'll do a similar line wash sketch like this, to see what feedback is from everyone, and I'll just pick someone's suggestion that I'm comfortable with, because I know there's some subjects that I don't really paint all that much, so I don't want to, just say that I can do it and then it turns out looking nothing like it should. So all right, thank you everyone. I'll see you soon.